Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
So today we're taking a look at something that you actually brought to our attention,
Oh, very cool.
which I'm excited about because it's Dr. Seuss's The Lorax.
Nice.
And I think, when we first started talking about doing this one, I was like, oh, yeah, The Lorax. Like,
Yeah.
it's a classic children's book with great rhymes and colorful pictures. But I have to admit, like, as we started, like, really digging into it, I found it to be surprisingly, like, rich.
Yeah.
And there's so much there
It's true.
that, like, I had kind of forgotten about over the years. So I think,
Yeah.
like you said, when you brought it to us, you were kind of feeling nostalgic about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was one of those books that I read as a kid and,
Yeah.
it stuck with me, but it was like recently my kid got into it
Oh, nice.
and I was reading it to him and was like, wow, there's a lot more here than I remember.
Totally.
So yeah, I think this deep dive is really going to be about kind of unpacking that core message that's in the book
Yeah.
and talking about, why it still feels so relevant today.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's a reason why certain stories resonate across generations.
For sure.
And the Lorax is definitely one of them. And I think, right from the opening,
Yeah.
the story kind of pulls you in
Totally.
with this image of the street of the lifted Lorax, like you said, this bleak place
Yeah.
where the wind smells slow and sour and the only birds are these like old crows. And that immediately establishes like, okay, something has gone wrong.
Yeah, like a sense of loss, right?
Totally, like a world that has suffered some kind of loss. And then
Mhm.
you have this mysterious Once-ler character
Right.
in his Lurkum, and he's asking for payment to tell his tale, but it's like super specific payment, right?
Yeah.
10 cents and a nail and the shell of a great-great-great-great-grandfather snail.
It's so weird. It's almost like ritualistic.
Yeah, totally. Like he's holding on to these remnants of a past that's
Yeah.
clearly really important to him.
For sure. And when he finally does start his story, he takes us back to this incredibly vibrant world. He describes it as such a long, long time back. And there's lush green grass and a clear pond and like these really clean skies. And you can hear the Swomee-Swans singing. And it's just this image of like almost like paradise.
It's idyllic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in this setting that he discovers the Truffula Trees.
Right. And you could almost feel that sense of wonder that he must have experienced, right? Like seeing them for the first time.
Totally. And I think what's so fascinating there is how Seuss uses these like really vivid sensory details to make the Truffula trees so appealing.
All right.
Like he talks about their bright colored tufts, softer than silk,
Right.
and smelling of fresh buttery milk. So it's not just a visual description, it engages all your senses.
Oh, for sure.
And it makes you understand why the Once-ler has this like great leaping of joy when he sees them.
Right.
And immediately is like, oh, I need to build something. I need to use these. And it really makes you think about how easily we can shift from just appreciating nature to like seeing it as a resource to be exploited.
Yeah, totally. And that brings us to the thneed, this wonderfully bizarre invention
Yes.
that finds something that all people need.
Right.
And the list of uses that he comes up with is just absurdly comprehensive. Like it can be a shirt or a sock or a glove or a hat or carpets or pillows or sheets or curtains, even a bicycle seat cover.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he thought of everything.
It's this ultimate symbol of like manufactured desire, right? Like it makes you really consider like, what does need even mean?
Right.
The need isn't fulfilling some fundamental human requirement.
Yeah.
It's presented as desirable just because the Once-ler says it. It's
Exactly.
like pure marketing.
Yeah, and it raises those questions about like how is demand created and like the power of advertising and marketing to like shape what we believe we can't live without.
For sure.
And not long after the first need is created that the Lorax shows up
Right.
with that fantastic sawdusty sneeze.
Yeah.
He's like, Mister, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees, for the trees have no tongues.
It's such a good line.
It's such a strong introduction.
Yeah.
Like he's immediately upset by what the Once-ler has done to that very first truffula tree.
Right. And what stands out to me there is that the Lorax isn't even like making an economic argument.
Yeah.
He's appealing to a different kind of value.
Totally.
He's highlighting the inherent worth of the trees themselves and their inability to advocate for their own existence.
Yeah, it makes you think about like the ethics of using resources that can't give their consent.
For sure.
But the Once-ler at this point is totally focused on his business.
Right.
He justifies his actions by saying he's being useful
Right.
and that everyone needs a thneed,
Uh-huh.
and almost immediately someone buys one,
Yeah.
which is a really interesting moment in the story because
Yeah.
from the Once-ler's perspective, the market is validating his actions, right?
Exactly.
It's like an immediate reward for exploiting this resource.
It's instant gratification. And it kind of brings up this tension that we see even today between like immediate economic gains
Right.
and the long-term consequences for the environment.
Right. And so often those consequences are so delayed
Yeah.
that it's hard to connect those two things.
Yeah. And the quick success of the Thneed, like, totally reinforces the Once-ler's belief that he's on the right track
Right.
and blinds him to the potential harm.
Yeah. And that success leads to rapid expansion. He makes that, famous radio phone call to his family, urging them to come and get rich by knitting tades.
Yeah.
Soon there's a whole factory built and everyone's working at full speed, chopping down more and more truffula trees.
It's like a snowball effect.
It's a real escalation.
Yeah, and with that escalation comes technological advancement. I mean, at least in this case, a more efficient way to destroy trees.
Right.
The super axe hacker,
Yeah.
capable of taking down like 4 trees at once.
It's so intense.
It's like efficiency in production completely overshadows any concern for the rate of resource depletion.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the Lorax seems to retreat a little bit after this.
Yeah.
Almost as if the scale of the destruction has become overwhelming.
Like he can't even keep up.
Yeah, he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
But he does return.
He does.
And this time he's concerned about the brown barbaloots
Yeah.
who are getting the crummies
Yeah.
because there's not enough truffula fruit left for them to eat.
Poor barbaloots.
Yeah, they're losing their food source and their habitat.
Right.
And the Lorax has to send them away to find food elsewhere.
It's sad.
It is, and it's like the first tangible consequence we see that's beyond just the loss of the trees themselves.
Totally. And the Once-ler's reaction is really telling.
Yeah.
He admits to feeling a little sad as he watches them go, but then he immediately rationalizes it with that statement, business is business, and business must grow.
Business is business.
Yeah, it just really highlights that mindset where, like, economic imperatives are seen as absolute.
Right.
And everything else is secondary.
Yeah. Ecological concerns, ethical concerns, they're all like out the window.
It's like, is it simply callousness, or does it reflect a broader societal belief
Right.
about the primacy of economic growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, he doesn't seem to dwell on that sadness for very long.
Nope.
Because he just keeps biggering his operation.
Right, more factories, more roads, more wagons, shipping needs everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, and then the Lorax is back again.
Yep.
This time worried about the smogulous smoke that's filling the air and affecting the Swomee-Swans.
Right. They can't sing anymore because of the pollution, so they have to leave to find clean air.
Another species displaced.
It's really sad.
It is, and it illustrates how interconnected an ecosystem is.
Totally.
The impact of deforestation isn't just about the trees, it's about everything that depends on that environment.
Right, like a domino effect.
Exactly, and the smog is a direct result of the industrial processes,
Yeah.
showing how different forms of pollution can come from this single-minded pursuit of production.
Right. And it just keeps getting worse. The Once-ler's machinery starts producing gluppity-glup and sloppity-slop,
Oh, yeah, there's
like these industrial byproducts,
Yeah,
which he just dumps in the pond.
not good.
Of course this affects the humming fish.
Of course.
Their gills get gummed up,
Yeah.
and they can't hum anymore.
Poor humming fit.
So they have to leave, too, to find clean water.
Right.
And it's just this, like, stark depiction of how easily industrial waste can contaminate vital resources.
Totally. And it's like each stage of the Once-ler's bickering leads to a new problem.
Yeah.
The displacement of another group of creatures.
Yeah, the Lorax goes from, like, simply speaking for the trees to becoming this witness
Yeah.
to the unraveling of this whole ecosystem.
Totally.
And then we reach this final confrontation.
Yeah.
The Once-ler, now completely consumed by his ambition, angrily dismisses the Lorax's warnings.
Right.
And asserts his rights to continue down this destructive path.
It's like hubris, right?
It really is like a moment of ultimate arrogance right before everything falls apart.
Yeah, and that line, everyone needs, really emphasizes how artificial the demand for the Thneed has become.
Yeah, he's like totally convinced that it's necessary despite all the evidence of the harm it's causing.
Yeah.
And then we hear that single devastating sound, whack,
The last tree.
the fall of the very last truffula tree.
It's like a point of no return.
It really is. And the Lorax's reaction is so powerful just because of its quiet sadness.
Yeah.
He's not shouting anymore or arguing. He just gives the Once-ler this very sad backward glance
Yeah.
as he lifts himself up and leaves through a hole in the smog,
Yeah.
leaving behind only that small pile of rocks with the single word, unless.
So powerful.
It's so quiet.
Yeah, the silence of his departure after all those passionate pleas is deafening.
It's so heavy. And the Once-ler's initial inability to comprehend that single word, unless,
Right.
just highlights like how profound his lack of understanding is.
Yeah, he's left in this barren landscape. His entire enterprise is ruined, along with the environment,
Yeah.
and yet he's still missing the fundamental message.
Totally. But time passes, and the Once-ler living amidst the consequences of his choices does eventually begin to understand.
Right.
And this is where you, our listener, become a part of the story.
Oh,
Your arrival prompts this moment of realization for him.
that's cool.
He finally grasps the Lorax's message. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. It's like a direct address,
Yeah.
a passing of the torch.
So powerful.
It is.
And so crucial, like the Once-ler's regret, his years of living with those consequences, you know, lead him to entrust you with the very last Truffula seed.
It's a huge moment.
It's a huge moment and
Yeah.
such a powerful symbol of hope
Yeah.
and this recognition that the future depends on individual responsibility and action.
Right.
Like he's literally giving you this seed and saying, plant it, nurture it, try and regrow what was lost.
Yeah. With the hope that the Lorax and all the creatures might one day return.
It gives me chills.
And what's so cool is that this message extends beyond the pages of the book.
Really?
So we found some information about the Lorax Project, which is a real-world initiative from Dr. Seuss Enterprises and Random House.
That's awesome.
And their whole goal is to raise environmental awareness and support these conservation efforts that are aimed at protecting what they call real-life Lorax forests.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's like a direct attempt to translate those themes for the story
Yeah.
into like tangible action.
Yeah, like taking it out of the book and into the world.
Exactly.
And it makes you realize that the Lorax isn't just a cautionary tale.
Yeah,
It's an ongoing call to action.
totally.
Like the Lorax Project's mission is to inspire Earth-friendly action worldwide by passionate individuals of all ages.
I love that.
And that directly echoes the message that the Once-ler finally comes to understand.
Yeah, so as we conclude this deep dive into the Lorax, I think that central message really hits home like the immense power of individual action,
For sure.
whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
Like the story shows us these devastating outcomes of unchecked exploitation.
Yeah.
That's driven solely by short-term gain. But it also leaves us with a sense of hope
Yes.
and that final act of entrusting the seed to someone who cares.
Exact. That single word, unless left behind by the Lorax,
Yeah.
serves as both a warning and a challenge.
Right.
And it speaks directly to you, the listener, emphasizing that collective care and effort, even in small ways, are absolutely vital if we want to foster positive change in our world.
Yeah. And so as you
Yeah.
go about your day, think about this. What is your truffula tree?
Ooh, that's good.
What resource, what aspect of the environment really resonates with you?
Yeah.
And taking inspiration from the Lorax's voice and the Once-ler's final hopeful act,
Yeah.
what small, maybe seemingly insignificant action can you take today?
Yeah. What's your seed?
Yeah, think about that individual responsibility that we all share within this larger environmental story.
Awesome.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.